Hey there, thanks for joining us at the Rabbit Hole of Research, where you'll learn a few facts that you can impress your friends with at a party.
Hey, welcome back to the Rabbit Hole of Research. We're down here in the basement studio bringing you another fabulous episode. You have me, Joe. We have Georgia.
Hello.
We have
You got Nick.
And we have a special guest today. Will you go ahead and introduce yourself? And
I will sign in, please. I'm Jim Sergey.
Awesome. What do you do, Jim Sergey?
I do the same thing I used to get sent to the principal's office for doing. I draw pictures.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else. I was going to remind you this was a...
I thought he was going to be like, I chain smoke cigarettes, free class. Because
had a little
it'd be
illicit
fitting.
ring going on in the locker.
So did you really get in trouble for drawing pictures?
Yes, at home and school.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
So you decided to do it
Is it
more
'cause
and
you were
more.
putting
They
it
didn't
places
stop me.
you
They
shouldn't
couldn't
be?
stop me.
Were you like modifying textbooks with your own creative artwork to explain the subject matter in a way that kids would enjoy?
Now that you mention it, there was some of that. Yes.
Got to put a positive spin on this thing here. So we're all here today. We're going to be talking about the science of noir films.
I have
And-
prepped for this episode.
And Nick is ready, lock, and loaded.
I've quit my job roasting. I've picked up my private eye detective license, and I've been chain smoking cigarettes
There
for
it
at
is.
least 3 weeks now.
and you got
We're
some
set
sort
for
of-
this.
Yeah.
You've
You
been
can tell
doing-
from all the powdered sugar on your...
Yeah.
Nick, you finally did some research.
Yeah. This isn't powdered
Research you
sugar.
get
Don't
into.
worry. We call that snow
Oh, man.
in the business.
Oh, boy.
I don't know
Jeez
which
Louise.
film noir you're
I know,
watching.
right? He's
So-
watching the real noir.
So you might ask, like, why would we talk about film noir on our podcast, right?
No, where are you
I
going
didn't
with
know.
this?
Are you trying to do a plug?
I
Georgia,
know,
do a
just
plug
go
right
for
now?
it. You started here. Now
No,
it's-
but I think initially when we first talked about doing this topic, it was like, okay, because most everything we try to talk about a little science with it. So I think immediately it wasn't like, yeah,
I mean, it was like the lighthouse.
okay, you have to keep bringing up the lighthouse.
It had a lot of science in it.
It did.
I mean,
it had
did, yeah.
so
I mean,
much science.
We'll make it work. We go down a
I
rabbit
know.
hole.
The
Pop
lighthouse.
culture.
You need to listen to the lighthouse episode.
Everyone, if you haven't listened, listen.
But okay, I'll go ahead and do a fast plug. Can I?
This is taking like
This is longer than his list. We still got to go through that.
That's true. So Jen and we have an art show coming up February 28th, and it's going to be here at the Promise You Art House in Highland, Indiana, and it's called
Touch of Noir.
touch of noir
Yes, and
cologne.
you're going to see lots of fabulous artwork related to our favorite film noir. That's a hard word. Anyway, so
You better get used to saying it, Georgia.
Yeah,
So
I think we're
mark
gonna
your-
say it. So we'll put all that in the show notes.
Yes, mark
Just
your
have it
calendar.
there. Put that on your calendar. It's coming up in not so many days, less than 10. Yeah. You guys want me to launch
Yeah, let's
into
run through
my
your list.
definition list? And I'm gonna try to keep it abbreviated because I'm not the expert of noir. Not the expert of a lot of things, but I do have a definition. So you guys can correct it, add, whatever, disagree, but noir is a genre of fiction characterized by its dark, cynical tone, morally ambiguous characters, and themes of fatalism, crime, and psychological complexity. They're often associated with hard-boiled detective fiction, and it portrays a world where greed, corruption, and betrayal overshadow justice and redemption. So that's a founding or overall definition.
There is an argument that it's not a genre. It is a style.
It's not a genre, but a style. Okay. How are we teasing those two apart?
No, it's a style. The whole look of it is a style. Dark shadows and lighting and...
The grittiness of it.
Yes, yeah.
But as noir, you could say as a genre of story, and then when it's filmed, it would have an overlay of the artistic grit and things like that in it, right?
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Okay, I don't have to be.
I think this brings up the point that it's somewhat difficult to define.
Yeah,
and
right.
that's why there's so much written about it
Yep.
and so many arguments. And then the best kind of arguments is Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, a noir movie. And then people can argue back and forth about whether they think it is or not.
So there's no set. This movie's noir, but not everyone's going to agree with you, right?
Yes, there are always the nitpickers.
Well, there are some movies that
Right.
everyone would agree on.
Yes,
Right? I think so. There is a.
Do you
there
have a
are
list of
movies.
those?
I have movies. I don't know. I don't want to give the list of this. I have things, but I'm gonna leave it to Jim or Georgia to give maybe some
Examples.
examples of that. I do have some elements of noir, but I think we've already touched on some of those, so we can.
Quite often
Yeah.
it consists of a girl, a guy, and a gun.
Girl, a guy, and a gun walked into a bar.
Yes.
And said,
I
give me a
think
shot
Someone
at
walks
journeyman.
into a private eye detective. I've lost someone. I need you to find them. I don't know what to tell you, dame.
They walked
Yeah, I actually had a whole skit written for this. We got 3 hours to prep for this, right? Like,
So the woman is usually a femme fatale. Is that usually a seductive kind of figure? or
Quite
is-
often, yes. Yeah.
Are there any noirs where the roles are reversed? I don't know. It's always the woman coming to a man, or are there ones where it's reversed? Maybe
No, I'm trying to. I'm sure there is, but I can't
I
think
like
of
can't.
a
I-
Jessica Jones. I don't.
I
People
think-
come to her, but with that more, she's more the detective, and it's gritty and things like that. But
I feel like
I was
that would be a
is
really
that-
relevant one.
I did try to set my own self up there. That was
No, Marvel did that whole series of noir,
yeah.
and we also have Spider Noir coming out this year on Amazon. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And you would think Jessica Jones would be like a regular modern day
there.
noir.
And definitely has some of those stylistic features.
Yeah.
But as far as film noir there's like dates. Jim?
Yeah, in the 40s and into the 50s is the noir period, of which, while they were making the films, they didn't think of it as noir. It's the French that put the label on. Yeah. They were
It was
just
just
crime
crime.
pictures.
So it was more defined after the fact. But so then I think if you have things more modern, it's more neo-noir.
Can you say that 5 times for me?
No, I can't even say it once. So you definitely still have that style
Right.
and more, but the quintessential film noir is in that. And I know that there's like a Facebook group and it's like very specific, like 1939 to 19.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
55 or something like that. Yeah.
It definitely falls between that time period. But anyway,
So, question for a more modern noir, I feel like Christopher Nolan's falls into that pretty hard. Is that
so like Memento
yes?
or
Memento, The Following, even his Batman kind of had that nitty grittiness to it, where it's
In the Shadows, and then definitely someone struggling with questions of
morality.
and
Yeah.
Like, would you guys define any of those as noir, or did I just watch those and was like, yes?
I can see that. Like you said, it's like a style. I think that there's definitely some noir style in those.
Yeah,
I don't
they're
know
not
if
black and white, but like,
I don't know if I ever made that connection with those films. But
Well, Chinatown
with
would
that
be
one.
a
Chinatown,
neo-noir
definitely.
film made in the
Right.
70s, which and in color too, but it's
definitely,
definitely noir. Yeah.
yeah. And Blade Runner is considered definitely.
Yep, definitely. You got that gritty urban to the film there. But yeah. I was going to say I had the earliest example of noir. Did you guys have that, Nick?
No.
You got it already?
that's all you.
So
Unless
I-
Georgia has it.
And so
Georgia,
kind
where
of-
was your research?
And so I had it not from the film era, but actually in literature. The noir fiction emerged from hard-boiled detective stories, magazines like Black Mask, and the writer Chill Hammett, The Maltese Falcon, and then Raymond Chandler, The Big Sleep. They introduced the cynical detectives in countless morally ambiguous
Do you have a date on
worlds.
those?
I do have a date.
I think
feel it
Hammett
may-
wrote in the 20s and 30s, didn't he? Yeah.
So Hammett, that was 1930, was the Maltese Falcon.
I think Chandler might have been a little later, like
A
the
little later,
40s.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because did Chandler? I know that his stories were adapted by other writers, but didn't he actually work with them sometimes?
He eventually, he did work on screenplays and things.
So I think he was pretty
yeah.
much contemporary in that time.
It was 1939. He wrote The Big Sleep.
There you go. Maybe that's why
1939.
you see the
becomes-
1939.
Yeah, 1930. Before that, that was the earliest time. And then I guess before that, kind of proto-noir crime novels, I dug up The Shadow of the Rope by E.W. Horning in 1902. The Shadow of the Rope.
Interesting.
It's a proto-noir kind of crime novel exploring themes of suspicion, betrayal, and moral complexity, which sort of fits. It might have. And then Edgar Allan Poe's detective fiction.
Oh, I was
Wasn't
just
it?
going to
Yeah.
ask if
Yeah.
Poe would be regarded.
Yeah, that came up in this, and the murders in the Rue Morgue in 1841. They introduced a crime-solving protagonist with the dark psychological undercurrent. So that was pointing to these kind of early fictional proto-noir is what they were called or referred to. So it was a interesting
Noir.
proto-noir. That's right. We got neo-noir, proto-noir.
Is there a gothic noir? Because I feel like there should
Oh, there
be.
has to
Oh,
be.
yeah.
Yeah.
There has
Yeah.
to be.
I mean, if
think-
Edgar Allan Poe,
I can't really think of an example, but if not, we got to get on that.
I want Del Toro to direct that one. Like,
Yeah, that's,
Right.
yeah.
He directed the remake of Nightmare Alley.
how
which-
was that? I did not actually get around to that one.
Oh my goodness. See, Nightmare Alley was always one of my favorite movies ever, the Tyrone Powers version. And then when I saw they were remaking it, I was like, okay, I'm not sure. Then I saw he was directed, so I'm like, okay, I think this will be good. It was so good. It was different. There was some changes made, obviously. But I like them both. Just, you got to see it.
Yeah.
Did you see that, Jim?
I did not. No.
You got to put that on your list.
Yeah, it was good.
I need extra
see it.
paper. Yeah.
I think we went on the opening night.
We did, yeah. We watched the original, and then we went and saw the
Because was that the first time you had seen
first
it?
time I'd seen it. Yep, first time.
Yeah, because I loved that movie for so long. It's just, yeah.
Another noir from the 70s that just came to me is, of course, I lost it, with William Hurt and Kathleen Turner.
Oh, yes.
Body Heat. Body
Oh,
Heat. Yeah.
yes.
I love the titles of these movies. It's like
They're all overly sexual somehow.
that's it.
Is that part of the noir? You have to have a sexual name for it, and it's like, oh yeah, it's a deep, gritty crime film. We'll call it The Ropes. It's
Maybe the rope of desire. Come on, man. Not just the ropes. You're in the
it
wrong
was the
section.
shadow of the road.
oh, I'm sorry. Make it even worse for me.
There is often that tension because you do have the femme fatale
Right.
and the hard-boiled detective. Not
That one I
think
wouldn't consider.
There's always some.
Or an insurance salesman, as in Double Indemnity.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would put that as the quintessential film noir. Like if you were really wanting to define it and you want to say, what one movie could I watch that defines this?
With the great line, which I don't know if I'm going to botch it. I killed a man for the woman and for the money, and I didn't get the money and I didn't get the woman.
Well, that kind of sums up noir
It
films.
really does. It really does.
At least the ones I've watched. So the thing that in noir films that I went down a little rabbit hole on was the forensics of it all. And just that always seems to be skirted and in my head, because of the time period as we set in 40s, 50s, in my head somewhat, I'm like, oh, maybe forensics wasn't that sophisticated. So in the films, there was a lot of things they didn't do. So I went down and what was the history of forensics? Like, what's the timeline? And I was really surprised because some of it was like 300 BCE. My Greek physician started observing pulse changes during deception. So this early precursor to lie detection. 1000 CE, we have Chinese records documenting fingerprinting as unique identifiers.
For the checking the pulse, were they having someone right there be like, now ask it again? Boom.
That's
I think he's lying. I
mean,
can't really feel his pulse, but he's either dead or lying.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture how that. I'm picturing the
That's how
logistics.
that's how a
of
lot
that.
of lie detector tests work, right? I mean, they're monitoring your bio kind of feedback, and pulse would be one. And are you getting more excited? And people that do
But how
eye
did they
movement, things
record
like
that in
It was
300?
just an observation. You can count and observe your pulse. That's not
It just seems
difficult.
So,
It was a
does seem
guesstimation.
difficult.
It was a
That does seem
guesstimation.
difficult.
And it was like an early precursor to lie detection. It was like you just noticed something.
It was more like guessing.
was
I
guessing,
feel
that's
like
right.
he's lying.
Yes.
I'm going to say he's lying. Let's beat him with something.
If
But
you're
yeah.
being questioned and someone's hanging onto your wrist,
Yeah.
you wouldn't get too nervous, wouldn't you?
And so in the medieval period, in 1247, there was the Washing Away of Wrongs by Song Chi from China, and that was the first known forensics manual. And it was addressing autopsies and cause of death determination. So it was like 1247. So
Was this pre them washing their hands?
yes, yeah, 1240. It's a medieval period, so yeah, there wasn't a lot of hand washing. No hand waving.
Hand wringing, though.
In 1686, Marcello Malfughi discovers fingerprint patterns, but does not link them to identification. So you had this like gap where someone was like, fingerprints are important in 1000 BCE, but then 1687, they still haven't connected the dots that fingerprints are unique to the individual. And really, the 19th century seemed like the heyday in the early 20th century, where you had a number of things. Toxology came out. You had ballistics analysis in 1835 by Henry Ard. You have fingerprints in 1880. So it took another almost 200 years before they proposed fingerprints as unique identifiers. And then in 1892, Francis Galton publishes a book called Fingerprints, providing a scientific basis for fingerprint analysis. And then you get into the 20th century, you have blood groups, blood typing in criminal cases, 1901. You have Edmond Locard formulates the Locard exchange principle. Every contact leaves a trace. Which that sounds like that would be a good noir title, but it
Or
wasn't.
tagline.
In 1920s, Calvin Goodhart advances ballistics using comparison microscopes to match bullets to firearms. And in 1932, the FBI establishes its first national crime laboratory. And in 1950, forensics criminalists becomes an academic discipline. So you have this, then you get in the 80s where DNA and things like that become more modern, that we're all familiar with forensics. But by the time these movies and stories were coming out, forensics was this new science and art that was there. And so I thought about, if you apply fingerprinting or some of these other techniques to noir movies, it would probably short circuit some of the plots. You would figure out who did what a little faster. So it seems like they're always a little fast and loose with ballistics, or we don't know who fired that gun or where'd that bullet come from, you would get back to it. So I don't know if you guys thought about that, but I was just
Yeah.
fascinated about the science. It was
You know,
interesting.
I'm trying to think of movies that brought the forensics in very much.
There was a movie, and the title escapes me, but I think in the late 40s, early 50s, and Ricardo Montalban is in it, and he's a forensic scientist.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. Usually that's all hand waving. No one really
Yeah, I
talks
think
about
that's
that.
because, I don't know, it never bothered me.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing. It never bothered me.
Don't,
Now it will.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah,
there's
thank
nothing
you.
right. It was like, you ruined it.
Yeah, why don't they just pull out their cell phone and make a call?
Go. Yeah, you brought up Chinatown. That was one, because that's one I was familiar with, and probably more familiar with it because it's used as just a story that when you analyze, it's a really good story study of how stories are constructed.
Especially screenplays.
And
yeah.
screenplays, and then we watched it recently, but you have it where, Jake was investigating the conspiracy of water rights and murder, and there's all this corruption and secrecy. But if you had a forensics, you would have digital surveillance, potentially environmental science. You could easily expose fraud. You could link
I
the
don't know,
players in that.
And
There
you
was
think
ways you
in
could.
the 70s when that was made, you think that there was a lot more?
They did, yeah. So you would bypass a lot of the story's complexity by just jumping right to that and getting in there.
Don't forget the incest angle.
And it's
Hey, no spoilers.
yeah, right, no spoilers. It's older than 20 years, so you can spoil it. So DNA testing, paternity testing can be done with blood pattern matching and things like that. And that was the 20s was when they first started doing that. So there were actually technologies they could use to probably get to who fathered who and in there. But yeah, you need a little hand wavium to do it.
I think that's interesting because just in general, like especially horror movies, it's really hard. I mean, it's much harder to make a really good modern times horror movie than there is, because if you are before cell phones, you're before. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes and no, because I do feel like there are a lot of modern horror films that are set in now, where it's they have ways of just taking that away from you.
That is true.
But what was the last Evil Dead movie that came out? Evil Dead Rise, I think.
Yes, I believe so.
They pretty much just had all technology stop. Like, all right, you try to use your phone, too bad you can't. Or it's, oh, you left it somewhere and someone stole it. Great job. So yeah, it's like, what, even Smile, I think, did a fairly good job with it. It's all over the place. And then it used, I think in Smile 2, they used that to make it a larger broadcast. If done correctly, I think it works.
Yeah, I do think there's just something about the, like,
pre-digital era.
Yeah. Well,
no fingerprint dust with hand wavium. They're all gone.
I honestly still don't understand how fingerprinting works half the time. On certain objects, it's, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then you watch some crime show, they're like, they left fingerprints on this windowsill. It was cement, but it's still there. And it's like, what?
You have oils on your hand, naturally, your skin. And so when you touch things, that leaves
But
an
you would
imprint.
think that these people would just wear gloves. Half of my day is wearing gloves.
It's because you're cooking food, so...
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, if I'm going to go out and do a crime, I'm going to put some gloves on.
Yeah.
Well, you'll already have some in your pocket.
Exactly.
That's
aren't
right.
you?
You're already there. The glove don't fit. You must have quit, right? I was going to defend noir films and things, especially from the 40s and 50s. I think we also have to think that probably public knowledge of forensic science isn't where it's at. I think we probably know a lot more because some of it's, probably a lot of it's wrong, but we understand there is forensics and you can do these things, fingerprinting or DNA testing and matching. But in the 40s and 50s, it probably, I gave the timeline, it was still a relatively new science and art. So probably the public.
And that wasn't necessarily in the mainstream.
Right. Yeah. And people probably believe that these things could happen. It's probably like some movies with science in it where they do things and it's, that could work. And it's, no, we can't do that. Sorry. That's just all made up.
Psychology and psychiatry were all coming of age in the 40s too, and they like throwing those in the films too.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. And I think that gets to maybe in neo-noir films where Nick's talking that you could start introducing maybe more real crime scenes and things like that, and the deception would be more.
I feel like there'd have to be conspiracy layers.
That's right.
Like,
faking data, faking evidence.
Where AI would end up coming into play.
Right, yeah.
Deep fakes. Like the whole thing would have to have all those just to make a modern noir work, because
you would need that kind of to add in, or else we would probably see through it and go, how come they just didn't do that?
Honestly, as we're talking, I'm already like, all right, well, what would help make a modern noir? And
I think, and maybe the noir folks here are going to yell at me with my comments, but like Seven, would that fit the noir? Morgan Freeman and
as a noir person, I would think that would fall under
Morgan Freeman. Was it Brad Pitt?
Yeah,
It was.
Yeah.
What's in the box?
Yeah, morally ambiguous characters. It was gritty to the style of it. To Jim's point, it did have that. See, I'll use Jim's words against him. The style was it. The genre, screw the genre.
I don't know. I don't know if I would ever think of Seven as a noir.
How about?
But It's definitely, I guess maybe because I think it's been many years since I saw Seven, but I think that the characters in that movie really reflected a lot about things. Was there a lot of, there seemed to be like a lot of self-reflection.
Right, yeah. Yep.
And I do think that's like a key piece in a lot of noir movies.
Flawed.
So,
Personal demons, kind
Yeah,
of portrayal,
but-
things, fatalism. I think all that fits in. So.
and what's interesting in Seven was, I can't remember characters' names, but they took whole parts of it. Somerset Mauve. Am I saying his name right? Somerset Mauve. Mauve.
Mom?
This author. Look,
Mom.
they
We'll put it in the
took.
show notes, I think. Oh,
No,
I
they,
think mom's the word.
Yeah. Mom.
they
Hi,
took
Mom.
they took whole passages from his novel.
Oh, really?
These beautiful passage.
Yeah.
And that was in that movie Seven. It's very interesting because it was much more than just like a horrific horror kind of movie. It was very much about their internal struggles and
Yeah.
I don't know.
The other
But
one I thought on forensics, sorry, I'm on forensics, but is a True Detective.
Yeah.
And that had that very dark, gritty
I got one.
characters.
Fargo.
Fargo. I haven't watched Fargo.
Really?
the movie Fargo.
The
You saw the
was
movie
so good.
it's
I
that's
feel like
out
that one
a
would.
long time.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think I've seen
I
the
think you
movie.
saw Fargo,
Did I?
the movie.
I don't think I saw the movie.
I mean, the
With
show is just
Francis-
as good.
Francis.
McDormand.
You got last names down.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, trivia night.
I don't know, Fargo.
Like that's another one of those detective movies that has a murder where it does flip
Yeah.
the script, where it is a female cop leading the case,
right.
and
A pregnant female cop.
exactly.
Then you got more morally ambiguous characters and
And another Coen film, Blood Simple, was a
Simple,
neo-noir, too, that
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
flips you around.
Yeah. How about Silence of the Lambs? Give that one.
I feel like this whole episode is just me and you going, "What about this film?
Yeah, right.
What do you think?"
I think that definitely was more in the horror.
What about
more
Wally?
in
No.
the-
Wally.
that was definitely more in the horror fear.
You had psychological
You
manipulation,
could have elements.
atmosphere,
I
tension.
think what your point, I think a good point is there's these kind of iconic things about film noir that now has made its way into lots of different films because it's cool. You know?
Yeah.
And there's no femme fatale in Silence of the Lambs, is there? Would that be the opposite switch, where Hannibal is the femme
Hannibal
fatale?
is fava beans and Chianti.
Such a good part.
You're right. They're really, isn't it? Yeah. But you said you got to have the femme fatale.
I guess. Do we? I think so.
I think, yeah. And that was like in that. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That eliminates a bunch.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
And he even flipping the script on that one.
Dude, that's what Hannibal Lecter would then be.
He is gorgeous in that film with the
And he does-
face
he-
on his face.
And he is manipulating. He is the one kind of
I
going
think there's
in and
is-
using
you do have this. He has this charm.
Clarice. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought Buffalo Bill would be the femme fatale in that.
Okay.
Precious, you remember my precious. The lotion in the basket.
This has gone off. This is going off the rails. Okay, so usually it's urban. You really can't have a noir film set.
Country Nest Western Noir?
Yeah.
I don't know of one.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
urban usually is it. Urban sense of decay.
Like
Usually
you
at
said,
nights.
nighttime
Yeah.
shadows.
We have the lighting, that kind of the
And then things are askew. It's
Yeah.
not just that people are in shadows. It's not quite
yeah.
right. Do you know what I mean? Things are a little,
Hinky?
yeah.
I
I was
think
gonna
Twin Peaks would fall under this category then.
Twin Peaks.
I think Twin Peaks definitely was influenced by
It
by
had
a love of
Noir. Him.
film noir.
the whole series to the end. It had everything of a noir film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, David Lynch.
David Lynch.
But
Look, Lost Highway, I think, definitely.
I feel like a lot of his
And
work
Mulholland
was
Drive.
inspired by
Right,
noir.
Right.
I think so.
Even Eyes Wide Shut, it had elements of noir throughout the entire film, throughout the lighting, the style.
I just think a lot of people don't have a lot of exposure to these movies from this earlier time period. They're black and white. I do think there's a huge following, but there's so many people that probably just haven't never watched, and there's so many good movies.
No, folks are starting. Where would you start them at? You're like, here's the place to start in noir. Once you watch these movies, you're going to be hooked, and you'll want more because they're a good start spot.
The Maltese Falcon is a classic. The Double Indemnity, anything with Robert Mitchum. Yeah. Touch of Evil, Orson Welles. Yeah.
Oh, The Third Man.
The Third Man.
Now, I think everyone, just regardless of whether you're interested in this, finding out more about film noir, you should watch that movie. It's just an excellent movie. And then the things that movie brings up about morality and how you feel.
So a big thing with noir films is the morality and the internal struggle, right? Is that...
That is.
Or
and
lack
a
of
lot.
morality, too. Yeah.
And I think in The Third Man, there's these certain scenes where it's corruption, I think, is a good.
And it's all shot in right after the war, and the buildings are crumbling, and there's a black market going on
Right,
for
right.
people just existing that way.
And there's a lot of, there's a talk about certain things are happening that are affecting very poor people. And it's, do you care about that?
Yeah.
And I think that it just brings that out. It's really a great movie.
Which the Spider Noir by the Marvel series actually touched on that a lot, because Peter was helping Ben Urch with his photography, where they're going to the seedy underbelly and seeing all the crime that's happening and take pictures of a apartment building being burned down because the landlord just couldn't afford to have all these tenants there because no one was paying, because no one had jobs, and it was really bad corruption where they had the Goblin burn it down because everyone's going to get a cut of this pay now because of how widespread that corruption is. And Ben is like, yeah, I guess now I've been being paid by the Goblin for so long, I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And yeah, it's a really cool series, but it does remind me a lot of that movie that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Georgia, when you mentioned people should watch these black and white films, which is difficult for different generations, one of my favorite quotes I heard some years back from a younger person about black and white films, he didn't watch them because they're too slow.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That is interesting because I don't find that in film noir at all. But there is a matter of internal thinking and
For pacing, there's another Mitchum film, The Big Steal, which is 60 minutes long, but it is just nothing but constant movement, car chases and fist fights and things. It's a whirlwind of a movie.
Yeah, The Big Steal. Once again, nice.
I want to know what the parodies are of these.
Be careful out there on the Googles. We'll put some links to these. Safe links.
We'll put them in the footnotes for y'all.
Show notes.
Joe, don't get to the wrong ones.
We were on the comic kind of world, I think, and we're giving them the MCU Marvel universe, but I was gonna say Batman feels like
He
especially
started
the
off as a
Joker.
detective comics.
Right,
like,
that's
well,
right. That's-
Gothic
Yeah.
City.
Yeah.
Wait,
Gotham.
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 I'm like, God,
You're
that's
like
not
Jotham
right.
City.
I'm like, that's
it's
not right.
Jotham City.
But obviously, it's very urban.
Yes.
It's very
In
dark.
decay.
It's alleyways.
Crime. Batman's
Yeah.
origin story is that his parents were violently murdered,
and now he just beats up on the poor.
and then he just beats up on the poor
And you have that.
psychologically enraged. All right, there's issues with it, but he is morally, he checks all the boxes for noir.
I think
Like-
you're right.
Batman is Noir. He's like
I
the
think-
mascot.
I think it's interesting because now the biggest obsession, I think, like probably sells the most podcasts, the most TV shows, everything is true crime, right? Don't you think?
Yeah.
But back in the time of film noir, I wonder how much true crime stories were out there.
What, I mean, that's,
Or was
yeah.
this
I mean-
really, this was the,
This was their true crime.
Right. That was like it came out right out of the pulps, the detective pulps. And that was probably easily digestible, quick detective kind of stories, which probably were ripped out of the headlines. I think that's the
which
best
are,
material.
which is not slow.
You know,
I feel like Georgia took offense to that. And I don't know if I said it or you said it.
I didn't say
No,
don't
no.
blame
Or
me,
she's
man.
assuming we are.
No.
I was quoting.
It was a quote.
Jim was saying that's what some people say about just in general, like black and white films. Like they don't even give it a chance. It's just, oh, it's black and white. I'm not going to
Yeah.
watch it because I don't understand that.
Yeah, the scenes last more than 3 seconds. So it's-
Yeah, they had to be. Film was expensive back then, so you had to be quick. I mean, people don't realize that film was really expensive. It was difficult to work with. A lot of times here we talk about older movies that don't survive, but they weren't digitized. They were on film.
Some of those films were done like in 2 or
Right.
3 weeks because
Right.
they
Yeah.
didn't have the time or budget to do more
the
than
cast,
that.
things
Yeah.
like that. So you had to do it fast. You had to do it quick. The scenes had to be well executed. Usually the plots move along relatively quickly, and they pack a lot in. And in some ways, you might go it goes too fast because for all the convolution in the plot, it's whoa, hold on, did I miss something? Did that?
In The Big Sleep,
I was going to
there's
say,
there's one
speaking
murder
of-
that's never been figured out
If they
what
had
happened to
modern-
it. Yeah.
Didn't they even ask
Even
the
the
writer?
author who wrote
Yeah.
it said, "Oh, I don't know what happened." Yeah.
Right.
If they applied forensics to it, they would have known. No.
And my initial thought in The Big Sleep is I need to Google this. I need help figuring this whole plot out. It's just, but it's so good you don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. See if they had fingerprints and DNA surveillance. They would have got it.
Blood splatter.
Blood splatter patterns. So.
Well, see, that's all the true crime stuff.
Right. That's
So
that's
this
it.
was just the pre-crime shows.
This was
CSI,
true crime,
man.
proto true crime.
I think just as just we're just very fascinated with crime.
Murder. Oh,
Crime. And
yes.
is tense.
Very interested in murder. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. But also, again, that gets to that point. We've touched on this a few times in a few episodes. That from a psychological point of view, it allows us to safely explore. Story in general allows us to explore worlds and things within the world that we don't necessarily have the ability to go out and do ourselves. You know, you
Shouldn't do yourself. You can.
You can explore
No,
morality.
Yeah.
We don't
like
advise
the-
you going out and
Right.
doing
It's like
all
a
these
safe way to
murders.
explore morality. Oh, this isn't what we should do, but this is what would happen if we did do this thing. It usually has these lessons and exploring. The same thing with horror. We touched on some of this in some of the episodes.
no, it's true.
So I think that's similar, where we find it fascinating, especially true crime. I think it's, oh, this really happened. Someone really did this thing. Can you believe it? And then they go through it, and then oh, see, that's why you don't do this kind of thing. You're gonna get caught, and at the end, or killed, or not get the woman or the money. So it's
I think these from the beginning of writing stories, the morality tells, and like, so I think it really gives people a chance to look at what would you do in that situation. Like,
Yeah.
explores a lot of those.
How they almost got away with something, but may never do.
Are there any horror noirs? Can you guys think of any?
According to Joe, Silence of the Lambs.
Well, I don't consider that as horror, though. Like, I don't.
that's usually people throw it in the horror
They
category.
do, but, like, they're wrong.
There it is. Nick, that was Nick.
Hi, I'm Joe.
I don't know if any horror. What do you think, Jim?
Like, I feel like that would be a good crossover for that.
It's not. It's the urban part of it. It throws it off a little bit.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Bride of Frankenstein? Is that? No, that would.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know.
I
feel like
think
with that
maybe
whole-
that's more gothic. That's more gothic horror.
Gothic
You
horror.
know what I mean? The dark,
The Last of Us.
Would that be considered a
I don't know
noir?
if you have a
I would consider that
favorite
horror.
That is horror, right?
But
I mean, you got to survive in a decayed kind of world, and
No, I think you're I don't know.
we're pushing it too far.
Yeah.
If it's space, I think aliens come to mind. Alien, but it's not in the city. But you do have there's morally corrupt characters.
It's okay. We'll
Yeah,
start
we'll
writing,
figure it
Joe.
out.
You and
Let's
I will
go.
create that horror noir.
That's it.
Have everyone yell at us for that.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point. And it's also because we didn't bring this up, but about the code, what could be shown on films.
What's the
for
code?
Well, in those films, a lot of the violence was off screen, and it still was very visceral. But
Okay, the code was
one foot on the floor on the bedroom scenes.
okay. Who was it? Was it McCarthy? Was the code because of
Oh
McCarthy?
no, it was
Or-
Hayes. The Hayes.
Hayes.
Hayes. Yeah.
Wait, one floor on
Okay.
the foot with the bedroom scene? What?
If a guy and a
it's
girl
okay.
on a bed together, there's got to be 1 foot on the floor.
From both of them, or?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Just 1 foot.
that's a really
You're getting
They
creative.
were
dude.
very okay. So, what's called the code or whatever is specific rules that they had to abide by when they were making films. So there was a lot of rules. There was a lot of
Like
them,
sexuality can only go up so far,
Right,
and violence was usually off screen.
right. Yeah, I can't even think of all. But so
And Hitchcock changed all that with Psycho. Yes.
yeah, so a lot of the film noir movies were made in a time where they had to use a lot of innuendo. It had to be like
Innuendo. Is that what you were
yes,
going to say?
It was, and I couldn't quite get it out. And also implied like the violence, the murders. So as far as like a horror, it was like these very violent things happening, but you didn't see that on the movies, on the actual.
And some characters that were horrible, like Orson Welles in Touch of Evil, was a monster of a character, even though he was a human. And it was the guy that throws the pot of coffee in the girl's face in that movie. That was pretty horrible. Lee Marvin throws a pot of coffee in Gloria Graham's face, and she gave her a bandage the rest of the movie.
Wow. All right. Thinking about this. Angel Heart in your horror.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one.
You
You
don't
ever
know
seen
Angel
Heart? Oh man, you're in for a treat.
I'm sorry,
Go
guys.
watch that.
Oh, what do you
That-
say?
that followed-
80s, late 80s.
Yeah, that was definitely didn't follow the code.
And that's what's his name?
And what Mickey Rourke?
Is that
Mickey
oh,
Rourke
Yeah,
Oh,
and then
And Robert De Niro.
the one, what's her name?
and De Niro. Lisa.
Lisa Bonet.
Oh, from the Cosby Show.
Yes, Cosby. Yeah.
That
That was good. That had everything, right? That was pretty. What?
George's.
I think that fits noir.
She's so ready to shoot
I
you
think
down,
you're
Joe.
just really.
No, I mean you have all the elements in there. Yeah, the femme fatale and Monet. You got
The struggle
morally
for
ambiguous characters, the kind of gritty, dark tone, the style of it fits,
I guess.
and it's a horror. I mean,
Okay, you could make that argument. Yeah,
I'm not going to spoil it. It's got a good twist.
It's
Plus,
really good.
Nick hasn't seen it. You should watch it. I'll
It's on
put that on
Pluto
list.
TV.
Yeah, I would-
Pluto TV.
I would watch it. Did they edit?
I don't know.
Yeah, you kinda probably
You
wanna
want to
watch
watch
that.
the.
All right, so I'll just rent it from Google.
You want to watch the uncut version of that
you don't
movie.
want the code rules.
Yeah, trust me. You want to. You're for yeah.
Oh, my.
It's pretty.
No feet on the ground.
No feet on the ground. No.
Because that's all I've learned from the code.
No feet on the ground. Yeah.
I wish I could remember other. There's more like really obscure rules on the code.
If only there was some device where you could really just look
I
up
know.
stuff and find it immediately.
I know.
It was a set of guidelines that regulated the moral code
Jeez.
of movies produced in Hollywood from 1934 to 1968. The code was created by Will H. Hayes. He was the president of the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America. It was to prevent government from imposing censorship. It was to create favorable publicity for the film industry, and it ensured movies maintained a clean moral tone.
When did that code start?
34 to 68.
Freaks got in before that.
Yes. It
Interesting.
It prohibited profanity, obscenity, and racial slurs, prohibited graphic violence, criminally substance use, promiscuity,
Say that again.
homosexuality, prohibit scenes of nudity, dancing of a sexual nature. It's like Footloose. Prohibit the ridicule of clergymen, and required that films condemned killing.
I think one thing that we haven't touched upon, which really needs to be touched upon, is the amount of smoking that takes place.
I think we did touch upon that when I first said I've been chain smoking for 3
Okay,
weeks.
Yes.
you are so right, Nick, and I'm
And
sorry.
they must not have been included as things. When I think about noir films, I think about drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
And those are not, I guess they were just worried about reefer and,
They used to have ads in magazines
Yeah.
for cigarettes that had doctors.
Tell your mom to go get you some cigarettes.
Yeah, and they even had the doctors all prefer Camels or something like that.
8 out of 10 doctors.
Yeah,
think,
I mean, but I try to picture a lot of those films where they weren't smoking, and you didn't have to smell it, so that
Right.
what I
smoke
mean.
curling in the darkness. It looks very cool and so.
That's what I mean. And then taking that moment to light each other's cigarette,
Yes,
and
yeah.
and always having those cool cigarette cases. It really does romanticize.
There's a movie I watched recently, Crime Wave, from early 50s, I think, with Sterling Hayden, who was a heavy smoker, but the director wouldn't allow him to smoke cigarettes. He had to chew toothpicks because he wanted him to be real surly and gruff, and he was.
and you know,
He
it's,
wants you to be in a really
it
bad
wasn't
mood.
popular for women to smoke cigarettes until the 20s or in the 30s, because it wasn't, that's when it really started and kicked up. But before that, it wasn't, it was a man's thing only. And they tried to get women to smoke. And I heard this story in reference to advertising and how marketing and how they staged a parade, like a freedom parade was happening. And then this marketer had women stop in the parade and light up, and then had photographers take pictures. And it was all like, this is our freedom. This is like from suffrage, like the right to vote. It was like, this is our empowering women. And then
We have a right to get lung
women, right, and
cancer
then women,
too.
and then they marched and smoked their cigarettes, and they tied it to this kind of women's power and the women's right movement. And then women started smoking, like it became a big thing. It was like, and it was the point in advertising where before that point, people advertised products to say how good it was and why you needed it. Then the marketing shifted to convincing you why, not how good this thing is, but why you desperately need it and you want it. And it was a very
You want to be a
interesting
part of
twist,
this.
right?
You want to
Yeah.
be cool.
Yeah.
You want to be part of this new movement and wave.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So probably when these movies started coming out, everyone was in the smoking game, and it was good for you. It was like kind of smoking was sold as you could lose weight if you smoked, or live longer, or think clearer.
In the 40s, during the war,
Yeah,
cigarettes were sent to soldiers, and they were.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
there we go.
How many cigarettes do you think that those actors had to smoke? You know what I
Well,
mean?
Humphrey Bogart did die young of a lung cancer.
Well, no,
So he wasn't faking it.
probably not. Yeah, you don't see
feel-
people smoking in them nowadays.
Next one that comes to mind is Oppenheimer.
Well, they were set
And
a
then
biopic from the 40s, right?
Mad Men.
Which was
Once again,
set
set
in
in
the
the-
Yeah.
yeah,
something that's set
yeah.
in modern times. Have you?
That's because they always have to go outside to smoke, so it would
Yeah,
correct the storyline. Yeah.
That's a good place to get killed, though. If you're now doing your neo-noir, your horror,
Yeah.
and you go out for your smoke. Here it is. We're starting to write the script right now.
We've got notes. Joe
I don't
and
know
I have
what
been
it's
texting
called.
each other since the
Like, you
entire
know.
episode.
We need a name. The Claws of Desire or something. I don't know.
Back scratches.
Of Desire. You got that desire. Is that right? Cool.
So
We're
yeah,
coming-
I would want to throw out another one,
Another what?
or we can just have a list of favorite noirs
Probably, yeah.
with
Yeah.
the podcast. But I recently rewatched Sunset Boulevard. Have you seen that?
No.
You would like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On your list, Angel
Yeah.
Heart, Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, those are excellent.
The double feature.
Those are excellent together.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, maybe David Lynch. I think David Lynch should have wrote a prequel to Sunset Boulevard, exploring her chimpanzee that died.
So did we land on David Lynch being a noir writer?
I think definitely
Yeah.
influenced by it.
I would
Blue
fill.
Velvet. Yeah.
Twin Peaks, like you said. I think the style and everything. So, yeah. Jim, did you have anything? We're coming to the end. Beverages are finishing. Did you have any final thoughts or something you wanted to talk about while you got the microphone shoved in your face?
Well, I hear there's going to be this exhibit of noir art called Touch
Yeah.
of Noir.
Touch of
at
Noir.
Oh, do you know
Highland.
anyone that's going to be doing that?
A couple of nobodies.
Oh, all right.
Hey, wait a second.
Nice.
No, Georgia guys and Jim Sergey.
Oh,
There it is.
Oh,
Our very own
I'll have to look them up.
Georgia. So come on down to Highland, Indiana, February 28th to see a touch of noir and
At the Promise You.
There'll
learn
be
more.
cigarettes and mocktails.
Cigarettes.
Actually,
Candy cigarettes.
I was going to
Candy
say,
cigarettes. We want to keep people healthy. Just get diabetes instead.
nobody will want to really eat them, so it's fine.
No, they just puff on them.
So, Jim, what have you been drinking this episode?
I've been drinking Lake Michigan Straight.
Oh,
That's a dangerous thing. That sounds like a noir title. Lake Michigan Straight. That is, I like that. That's nice. That could be a title for a movie.
we got to copyright these real
That's
quick.
right. Yeah. There we go.
What about you, Jordan?
Oh, in the spirit of dry January.
Oh, I thought you were going to say in the spirit of noir.
If it was a spirit of noir, it would definitely not be
It would be a
dry.
You'd be
Spirit.
drinking a horse's neck.
Exactly. I have the Best Day Brewing Hazy IPA, which is a non-alcoholic beer.
Joe, what about you there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm also on the dry January train. This is recorded in January. And so I'm having a non-alcoholic phony Negroni by St. Argus. So
And Nick, we're
Argus
almost out of time, so I don't know if you could be able to mention all yours.
Listen, everyone knows I have an array
A
of drinks.
smorgasbord.
I have Amplifier by Two Brothers. I have Killer Cola by Liquid Death. And then I also have my other Killer Liquid Death, which is Severed Lime. Yeah, not sponsored
then-
yet.
Severed Lime is a good title, too. It's a-
Severed lime. Yeah.
So yeah, it's.
There it
And
is.
the Liquid Death doesn't compete with each other.
What do you mean?
In your
The
mouth.
cola and the versus.
No, it's a nice blend actually.
Okay.
You got a little bit of lime in your cola. It's great.
Lime in your cola.
Which it's not actually soda. It's soda flavored water. It's really good. Joe
It
tried
was
it.
tasty. Yeah, it was tasty. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I think that's what's on. Is that it
Yeah.
today? Yeah. We have. Let's thank Jim for joining us, and we look forward to seeing your art on February 28th. And promise you, our gallery in Highland, Indiana.
All right.
You got me, Joe. You got Georgia.
You got
See ya.
Nick.
You got Nick. Let's
And-
thank Jim again.
Thank you so much for showing
For
up.
doing
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Anytime.
And we went down another hole.
Went down some dark, gritty holes.
They were kind of in an alleyway.
That's right.
I gotta go get another cigarette, guys.
Stay morally.
Basically got really smoky.
Love y'all.
Bye.